Hi, in this video, I want to talk about censuses. So what could possibly go wrong? If you've ever been a census taker or talked to somebody that has been, you'll know the struggles for sure. So as you are employed to go out and knock on people's doors, that is not the easiest thing to do. It's depending on the time of day, you might find that no one is ever home when you come calling. Sometimes they are home. There's just no answer. Sometimes there's a language barrier and you're trying to figure out how to spell things or how to even hear things. Sometimes people have a hearing difficulty and you're just not able to communicate. So there's a vast number of communication issues. There's penmanship. Some census takers have beautiful penmanship and some don't. And some census takers even had the people write their own names on the censuses, and they had awful penmanship. So say you're a census taker and you miss a home on your first go around, you come back multiple times and you're just never able to catch the person. Well, I'll take what I can get. I'm going to go to a neighbor and see if they can fill me in on all of their information. Or I'm going to catch the little 5-year-old because it's better than nothing, right? It's better than just putting down that no one lives there. So there, across the many years that censuses have been taken and the various employees that have taken the census, there is a variety of different mistakes that can come from a census. So let's take a look at a few scenarios, just for an example. I find this very helpful as we are attaching sources in Source Linker to kind of consider some of these scenarios that might pop up, and so that we can better use our deduction skills in determining proper matches. So scenario number one, 1950 census. Here in the United States, it's a German neighborhood, and you're interviewing an elderly widower. So some things that might come up when you ask about their birthplace and it's a German neighborhood, maybe they're not wanting to necessarily answer the proper one. Maybe they think that they can persuade you that there is they grew up in Poland rather than Germany, if they were ashamed of their heritage given the current political situation that was at hand. Maybe there's a language barrier. Maybe this elderly widower never learned English and didn't want to answer the door. He knew exactly what they would be asking and just simply refused to answer it. Maybe there's animosity or nervousness to answer and even talk to a census taker based upon their nationality. There's a variety of instances, and I'm not trying to just pigeonhole one thing down, but just kind of taking a look at the intricacies of one-on-one human interaction in a U.S. census as it's being taken. Scenario number two. So here we have a 1910 U.S. census down in the South in Alabama. It's late afternoon, and you got there right as the mother was preparing the dinner for a household full of kids. And there's multiple generations living in this household. There's grandbabies, there's nieces and nephews, and they're just kind of all under one roof. Again, you've arrived late afternoon, and the mother is busy cooking, and most of the kids are helping in the kitchen. So you interview one of the oldest teenagers. It's a chaotic environment already. And are you going to get the best focus out of this interview? Are all of the ages going to be completely correct? As you ask, hey, where was your mother born? They're going to yell into the kitchen and receive an answer. And depending on the mood, it might be a correct answer. It might not be. A variety of different instances, right? Some of these census interviews can happen in the most chaotic of circumstances. Scenario number three, 1910 census. You're knocking on the door of a married couple with large gap in ages. They happen to have infertility issues, and you've interviewed the head of the household. So if there's infertility issues and the question comes up, how many children have you ever had, and how many are still alive? That might be a tricky subject. You might not get the full picture, the full answer. Considerations. Do we count stillbirths? Do we count every time that we thought we were pregnant and lost a child? So although the 1910 census is excellent, and that question is so crucial in family history, sometimes it might not be the full story. And so another issue with that, where a married couple has large gaps in ages, especially if you're interviewing the head of the household, they might lie about their age to kind of narrow that gap a little bit and make it a little bit more kosher sounding. We don't know. I mean, there's so many families with so many different circumstances and the interview styles, etc. You might have a sweet old lady taking the census, or you might have a gruff old man that's just like, let's just get this done. So how reputable is a census anyway? Censuses provide us and are some of the best resources to prove family relationships. Typically, in the relationship column, if this is a wife or a son, a daughter, a grandmother, nephew, typically those are great resources to prove family relationships. The vital information is present, but it likely contains errors with ages and things. You just kind of have to take all of the vital information with a grain of salt. I mean, spelling errors galore, whether it's an indexing error or a transcription error or just hearing the person wrong. The names are just there to as kind of a guiding post, but rarely are they 100% accurate across all of the different censuses. And censuses are also a great resource to pinpoint locations. If it gives a street address and a house number, etc. If it gives the county and city and even the birthplaces of that particular individual, as well as their mother and father, even though some of these things can be falsified or may not be known and they gave their best guess, they are still fairly great resources to pinpoint locations across time. And so censuses are invaluable. We use them all the time to help prove lots of different things and connect families together in family search. But we have to have that nuance of, if you are trying to match Mary and Maria, it might be a match. If everything else lines up, different issues in censuses may conflict and seem to be a little off. Sometimes you have very wide years that are being trying to be matched together. Well, this person's 10 years apart. It's obviously not a correct match. But in some states and some locations, it's very possible that people were lying about their age, or they were just asking a neighbor and they're like, oh yeah, he's really old. He's like 70 something. And they had no idea when he was born or how old he was. So anyway, censuses are amazing, but they do contain errors. And so as we take a logical look at the process that possibly went into any given census, as we are using our deduction skills, comparing a source to an existing family in the tree, to keep these kind of scenarios in mind and to better use our judgment to determine matches in the tree.